Right, so there's some big news this week
there's some big news this week
concerning one of us.
Ooh.
So one of us is involved in a game that
one of us has been involved in a game. Yeah,
has faced some controversy for its writing, has been accused of pandering and DEI, and can potentially be a bit of a controversy for the person involved. But that's enough about me and Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania. Laura's been working on a game. We've both been working on a game. They're both coming out on the same day.
It's been a fucking week for us and working on games, because I talked about Life is Strange a couple of weeks ago. The rest of the episodes of that just came out. You've been doing stuff on Vampire Survivors Castlevania content, which is fucking wild. And I have one that I can currently only say one sentence about because I'm waiting to hear what else I can say about. But what I can tell you today is I worked on Dragon Age the Veilguard.
Yes, you did.
I can tell you that. I worked on it like 4 years ago, and it was fucking wild, and I am so excited that I am in the credits of like a big BioWare RPG that's going to be out by the time you hear this.
There's something else I can actually say about that as well.
Yeah.
Actually, I mean, I don't know if I can get away with it because it is saying quite a bit, but I'm proud as fuck of you, mate.
Ah, shit.
I am proud as fuck.
I am proud as fuck of the stuff I did.
You deserve to be.
And I am waiting for what how much I can say about what specifics, but I can tell you, hey, I got asked to come work on that game, and I gave it my all, and I've seen bits of that game that have led me to go, hey, some of the stuff I did, that's in there, and I am real fucking excited about it.
It's surreal. It's a surreal thing to consider. And I say this as someone who can now frame on their wall a work email that says Konami was incredibly pleased with something I did. What a strange week. A wonderful week.
It's been a wonderful one. It's been a strange one, for sure. Yeah. For sure.
I mean, unless you're, say, a YouTuber with some degree of professional reputation and standing, whose very specific and obvious created character in Dragon Age the Veilguard happened to show up in leaked footage being shown by a massive racist. But, we're not that person.
No, that did break me, though. I was very amused by that.
I think we've both basically resolved recently to be like, yeah, the whole Twitter thing, we might just not bother anymore.
Look, I've been looking for my foot out the door for a while, and I'm very glad that the mass exodus of artists and game industry professionals moving to Blue Sky happened right before I said the words I worked on Dragon Age. Those things lined up really fucking nicely for the plan to become quite clear, and the plan was, say that I worked on Dragon Age and then don't look at Twitter ever again. And that's working out pretty well for me, honestly. Blue Sky, it's been fucking lovely over there. Everyone's had very nice things to say.
Yeah, Blue Sky is really benefited a lot in the last couple weeks. And we're going to get another wave, just so people are aware. If you're still on Twitter, November 15th, the policy goes into effect that everything that is posted to it, no opt-out at all, at least, outside of Europe, where they have protections and they'll fight this, but everything is being fed into Grok, their AI thing.
Here is my two things I would say to, try and convince people to make the jump. Is A, it's just nice Twitter. At the moment, it's Twitter, but without all the shitty people, and that's currently quite pleasant.
It's very chill. I jumped on Blue Sky when it basically just started. And obviously it was a bit better then because it had just started and there weren't a whole bunch of people on it.
There were no cis people there. Is what
Well,
you're
that was the big thing. Was it did very quickly turn gay, and it still is a very gay site because we all got in there first and we queered the place up. I've always felt, I feel pretty safe over there. Like like to the point where I'll even throw up a couple of thirst traps. Not if that does entice anyone over to come follow Commander Sterling, or indeed block it. One of the two. But it's a nice atmosphere, and I just feel like I can have a nice conversation over there, and that I'm not gonna post something and immediately expect some shitty little comment back within seconds, you know?
Here's the other one. I have 55,000 followers on Twitter and about 7,000 over on Blue Sky. I get more interactions and shares on Blue Sky than I do on Twitter at this point. If you're someone who's been lingering around like I have because you're reluctant to let go of the number over there, the number means more, even if it's smaller over on the other one. People are actually interacting with shit over there.
The numbers on Twitter stopped mattering a long time ago because of things like the way its algorithm favours the blue checkmark people now, and so much stuff is buried, and loads of people noticed very sort of soon after verification and all that shit got changed, just how dramatically their engagement numbers dropped.
But it's also, I think, working out to Blue Sky's advantage that the structure exists that way over on Twitter, because the people who are assholes, they're committed to the platform because the engagement benefits them.
Oh, absolutely.
And so they can't leave.
They've got no real incentive to leave. The blue checkmark people are getting exactly what they want from Twitter, and the fucking bigotry and all of that shit, the fucking racists and the queerphobes and all of them are in such a big echo chamber just chatting bullshit to each other. They have no reason to leave. The place is a cesspool, but they're shits floating around in it. They're perfectly happy. So yeah, they've got no reason to come over, and it's not going to help them to come over because they won't feel like the powerful majority anymore. So yeah, it really is worth going over if you're sick of Twitter's shit and you just want... If you want your social media to just be a nice social experience.
For now. I mean, it's only a matter of time. They just add a crypto guy to the board and,
Yeah.
But
for now, it's good.
Well, that's the problem with any online platform. It's always a case of for now. Mm-hmm. But as someone who's used Blue Sky for over a year or so, I think now, I'm not going to extol its virtues like it's wonderful. It's a,
it's a serviceable
it's
social
a social media
platform.
site. I've got no particular personal brand loyalty to it, but it is where I'm getting on the most. I find it safer to post there. I find there's no pressure there whatsoever. It's a good place I've found to start talking with people in the game industry and people who care about video games, which, over on Twitter, we've got a whole bunch of people calling themselves the only real gamers who are defined entirely by the games they've refused to play, and the only opinions they ever have about games are when they're angry there's a pride flag in it. Whereas over on Blue Sky, you can have a conversation about games with people who have actually played one. So that's good.
But yeah, to wrap up, I don't know how... I'm still waiting to know exactly how much I can say about what, but I can say this, because by the time this comes out, Dragon Age will be out, which means if you were to go to the main menu and click on the credits and scroll through, you'd find my name. The thing I'm credited as, cultural consultant.
Mm-hmm.
For now, you can all just sit and wonder, what culture did I consult on? Who knows? Just culture. Look for culture in the game. That was me.
That was
I did
all
all
you.
the cultural bits.
That was all you.
All the bits that are culture, they were me.
And if anyone's wondering about what I did, The word culture doesn't enter into it. Quite the opposite, in fact. If anything, I have taken culture away from 2 beloved video games. From Vampire Survivors and Castlevania, I have taken culture and I've left in their wake sex jokes. And that's it.
You've made some sex jokes become Konami canon.
I'm very pleased with myself. At the time of talking, both you and I have a copy of the game.
Yeah, we played some of it together. Have you had a chance to play any since you've had your review card?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I had to go unlock all the bestiary entries, didn't I? To
yes, you could go have a look at all those words. What you did.
See what got kept. I'm honestly shocked. Almost all of it is kept. The only changes to my original writing were it was almost entirely cultural differences stuff. Like
Americans aren't going to know what this thing you're referencing
like
is, kind of shit.
Like frankly,
they weren't going to let you get away with a Bernard's watch reference, for example.
Mate. Actually, you know what? I reckon I'd have gotten away with a Bernard's watch thing. You reckon
Bernard's watch would have got through?
Mate, there is one in there so obscure that no one knew it was too obscure. That's the best kind of obscure.
I see, yeah.
The one, I think I can say this. One monster had a write-up that was one long extended joke at the expense of the Teletubbies. And that one has been altered because it was decided that not enough people were going to get it, which I remember when Teletubbies was a worldwide phenomenon. So I know it's not a matter of regional spread. It's a matter of me being so old that worldwide cultural phenomenons to me are now obscure bits of history that barely anyone cares about. So I just decayed in my seat as I heard that. But yeah, people had wondered. When it was announced, I live streamed the night it was announced, and Terra1984, one of our regular chatters, they were the first person in chat to say something, and immediately it was, so I'm willing to bet Stephanie didn't work on that new Vampire Survivors content.
And you just stayed quiet until it was out and they couldn't do anything about it.
But no, I'm just that damn good at my job, you know? I am delighted they keep asking me back. When I was offered the job, I laughed out loud for a straight hour. I just sat at my computer and I bellowed with laughter. It was just the last thing I could have expected. And what was funny was that night I was streaming also, and someone in chat said, apropos of nothing, wouldn't it be funny if Vampire Survivors got Castlevania content? And I deserve a fucking Oscar for how I no-sold it. You know what? That honestly would be funny, wouldn't it? It'd be like it's coming full circle.
Wouldn't it just?
And also to all the people who have said about that content when it was announced, because I spread the news when the DLC was announced, and I had a few people like kind of being a bit sort of sneery at it, like, well, it's a bit redundant, isn't it? To which my response is, yeah, that's what makes it so fucking good. It's the most Vampire Survivors move. Like, the sense of humour that game already has. It's the perfect move.
Yeah. You remember that game that starts with your first unlockable character being a guy with a whip kind of dressed like Simon Belmont's hitting a whip against bats? Well, now the game has like a dozen plus whips in it now.
There are so many whips. There are
so many whips. They undersold how much shit is in this fucking DLC. There's too many whips.
Yeah.
There's so many whips.
Yeah, I'm not going to like spoil the surprise for people playing it, but I'll just tell you what they told me. What they told me and Laura Thursday night when we were at the party they were hosting. The plus in the trailer that says 50 plus new things, the plus is doing a good bit of heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
This is extravagant. So, yeah.
I'll say some little things about the DLC.
Oh, sure,
There's not a lot to say, because a lot of what I say is going to sound like any time I talk about Vampire Survivors DLC, which is, there is a good amount of additional Vampire Survivors content for a small amount of money that feels very faithful to the property that is being adapted into the DLC. That is consistently how I feel about this game's, here's a couple of quid, here's a property we put it in Vampire Survivors. I don't want to say too much, but I will say, map design-wise, this is very different to other maps that the game has had, in terms of feeling less like it is an open area where, like, sure, there's sub-areas you can go to, but you're pretty free to explore them as you wish. It feels like there's more progression to unlock in somewhat of a progression path than some of the other maps have had.
I would say, like, don't go in expecting, like, a full Metroidvania kind of thing, but I would say they've paid homage to that concept by having a Vampire Survivors map layout that feels suitably sequential.
Yeah, I'll say the very first thing, which was get to a locked door in a castle and have to go find a boss and beat the boss to unlock the door to go deeper in.
Yeah.
Like, there are things of that nature that are like, oh yeah, I've got to work at this in a bit more of a linear fashion than I might otherwise have done.
Yeah, but in a way that makes sense and still keeps to the spirit of Vampire Survivors. You're not playing the game in any fundamentally different way. You're just following a very natural sort of flow through the map.
Yeah, it's not to sound like it is entirely linear. You can ignore, like, you can go and start tackling that castle and having somewhat of a linear progression to explore with, or you can just go the other way entirely and go find other shit to do.
Yeah.
But there is more of a, here is one big thing that has a way it will be tackled.
And there is a lot to tackle.
Yeah.
And it was obvious from the very beginning that, you know, Vampire Survivors was made with a lot of love for Castlevania. It is, in some regards, it's always been spiritually very much a fan game in many ways. And seeing it come full circle, the sheer overwhelming adoration for Castlevania absolutely oozes off of the game, like oozes off of this DLC. There's so much genuine celebration of the Castlevania series, not just in terms of like how much content there is, but just how lovingly it's done and how thoughtful the characters are presented, like with their various little gameplay traits and things. To say it is extensive does not do justice to how much clear love was put into it. And as someone who adores Castlevania, it is very much something for like the zealous fans of it. Like, if you're a fan of Castlevania and you like Vampire Survivors, then you'll be left giddy with some of this. The music, especially. The the soundtrack is fucking phenomenal. They did a great job of making their versions of all of the tracks you'd expect. You know, if you can think of a classic Castlevania theme, chances are it's in here somewhere. Yeah, absolutely enjoyed it. I am a bit biased, as I say that I like a Vampire Survivors thing, but it's fucking phenomenal in terms of just the scope and how much they put into it. Great stuff.
Agreed, as someone slightly less biased. Yeah, hey, comrade.
Hey,
how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Pretty slow week for games for me. I've been kind of busy with some other stuff, but I did play a little more UFO 50, and I feel a need to apologize for something I said the other week.
Yeah.
Porgy is fucking great. Porgy is the game where you are piloting a little fish-shaped submarine in a Metroidvania type exploration thing. And once you get a grip on it and start to expand out your capabilities, it is a very, very good little Metroidvania that I really like.
I agree. I didn't get into my thoughts on it last week when you brought it up, but I was sat there being like, I definitely like it a bit more than you do, and I'm glad you're finding that vibe with it.
Yeah, I'm near the end of it now. Some of it is like the map's design is really good, but it's also incredibly frustrating because in that sense of like everything in each region still kind of looks just samey enough to get lost in.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really like the map. The music is good. It's very soothing in contrast to the action that's going on screen, which can sometimes feel very tense. And that's curious, and I like it. But it's just a damn fine little Metroidvania, and I felt like I gave it short shrift last time, and I wanted to make amends for that. It's pretty good. So, yeah.
Nice.
But that's really all I had to say about video games this week. So, I kept it short.
Well, I've got one to talk about that I'm gonna keep short because again, this is me talking about another game I've got a conflict of interest on because that's just who I am at the moment. I got to play through the remaining chapters of Life is Strange Double Exposure, which is that one I did accessibility stuff on recently. The full game is out now, and I do appear in the credits. I'm in there now. You can find my name. I'm like, me and my fellow accessibility people are right at the end. So like right before the credits end, you see just us at the end. So yeah, obviously, take my thoughts with a grain of salt because I worked on the game and have some degree of skin in the game, but I really like what Double Exposure does, while completely understanding why it is polarizing the fan base. We talked about this game a couple of weeks ago, and I talked about the fact that, like, in episode 1, there is one pretty polarizing thing that was the main thing people were talking about early on with this game, which was its handling of a breakup of two characters who might have ended up in a romance in the original game if you played it that way. And I maintain that I think they did a really good job with that, and I think they did a good job of making that breakup of a relationship feel interesting and feel like it had consequences in this story. There are other things about this game I think are going to be divisive. And a big part of that is, Life is Strange games prior to this have very much felt like self-contained stories. They are, here is a superpower or supernatural ability we have come up with that we have interesting narrative or mechanical ideas for. We explore it for one game, we move on. Even if we come back to the same character, their powers may not work the same way or may be different. It is a justification to sort of come back to that setting but have things be different. There is definitely an attempt here to set up something larger. To set up something that acknowledges the fact that all of these stories that have been told of usually young adults with supernatural powers living in North America, that they are existing in the same version of North America. They're existing in the same United States, and at some point, if you have enough stories of weird supernatural shit happening in the same country at about the same time span, that is going to, it's not going to go unnoticed that there's weird occurrences going on. And definitely a portion of this game feels like it is setting up for a future of the series that is more aware of that and less self-contained stories about new original characters each time, necessarily. And I like the direction they're going with it, but I know that's not going to be for everyone. It is taking something that was inherently somewhat of an anthology and making it an anthology that is becoming a series retroactively a little bit. And I'm certainly not opposed to that. There are stories I have really enjoyed that have done that. There is a horror podcast I absolutely love called The Magnus Archives that started off as unconnected, or seemingly unconnected anthology horror, and then started to go, hey, those were actually kind of connecting along the way. We're pulling those threads together now. I like that decision, but I can see where it's going to be a different turn for the series, and I'm curious what people will make of where it's going. The mystery was great, there were fantastic characters, and again, I take my thoughts with a grain of salt. I found this the most interesting game in the series in terms of I don't know how to feel about... I'm coming face to face with the source of the problems going on in this, and I genuinely am pretty torn on how to respond. And I appreciated that genuine, not growing in my stomach of, mixed feelings about how to proceed that a good choose-your-own adventure should really evoke. So yeah, I really dug Life is Strange Double Exposure. I think it takes some wild and probably needed swings for the series. I think it is not content with being another Life is Strange that plays it by numbers. Some people are not going to like the changes it makes, but I appreciate them swinging for the fences on it. What about you, Steph? What else have you been playing this week?
Well, I was planning to talk about the follow-up to Procession to Calvary, Death of the Reprobate, but was given a code. And then I thought to ask if there's an embargo, and then I was told, oh yeah, the person who was supposed to send you the email did say there was one, so you should probably abide by that. I really like the developer of those games. So I can't really talk about it. So what else did I play? I think I might be over the addiction to Eternum New World at fucking last.
Is it because you got the plague mask? Is that what finally got it out your system?
I think, honestly, that was a big part of it. Like, legitimately a big part of it. I got the plague mask. I got that on stream. Then, after then, it did just start... I didn't have another big goal in mind. And I'd hit level 60, and, you know, there was more stuff I could do, but... Then I was planning to play it on live stream again Monday night, but I had a big old migraine and went to bed instead. And that meant after a busy weekend, I didn't play it much, and then didn't really play it at all on Monday because I was working on video editing stuff and some writing stuff, and then had a migraine. I woke up Tuesday morning, I put it on habitually, played it for a bit, and was like, I'm not even getting the begrudging stuff out of this that I was getting. I think I might actually finally get around to playing Sonic X Shadow Generations now. So I did that instead. And I haven't picked it up since.
Yeah, how are you getting on with Sonic and Shadow?
It's good. It's good. It
is, yeah.
I really liked Sonic Generations when it came out the first time round. I think I gave it an 8 out of 10 when I reviewed the original. And for the time, I would still stand by that within the context of its time period. I'd probably hover around a 7 more now for the game on its own, if it was just on its own. Looking back, it's still very good, and I have been enjoying it. I always bring this up when I talk about it. The Hedgehog engine is a very underrated game engine. They used it for Sonic Unleashed, and they used it for Sonic Generations. And these days, I don't think they use it. But Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations are two of the prettiest looking games of their generation. And it's one of those games, Sonic Generations is one of those games I hold up, like Viva Pinata, as a great example of the tragedy of the first HD era of gaming, where, for me, high definition really looks its best and really pops with saturated colours, vivid colours. I'm a big fan of, I've talked about this before anyway, but I'm a big fan of colour saturation and stuff like that. And I always thought it was kind of tragic that the HD generation of games was also the generation of games where brown and grey became the predominant colour. Not that some of those games can't look good and can't look pretty in their own right. You know, I've always said, like, you know, you look at a game like Dark Souls, I've always used the term beautifully bleak for it, where it is very grey and cold, but there is still something very gorgeous about the way it looks. But with a lot of the games, you know, this was the Call of Duty era, stuff like that, it just looks drab. And when you get a big HD TV, or when you used to for the first time, dull, dreary colours just don't make the most of it. I watched a lot of HD movies and felt disappointed by them way back in the day. Then I put on Rocky Horror Picture Show from decades past, and it looked better on Blu-ray than a lot of more modern films did back then, because of the colours. So anyway, that was such a big fucking tangent, sorry. The point is
right.
Sonic Generations, for my money, is one of the best looking games of its gen. This is a predictable game industry. I knew we'd see a remaster of it, and I was looking forward to it because, yes, I would like to see that on modern systems with a fresh coat of paint. I was not disappointed by that. It looks so nice. It looks gorgeous. The colours are beautiful. The animations are so nice. I love how smooth all the characters move. There is so much fluidity to them. And I had forgotten how adorable it was when classic Sonic gets an A or an S rank at the end of a level, and he scrunches up his little fists, And he builds himself up a little and then poddles round in an excited little stampy circle. It makes me do a little clap play every time I see it. So yeah, solid stuff. I will say, I am shocked at how much the shadow side of things has stolen the show for me.
Right? It's so good.
Yeah. So I don't dislike Shadow. He just doesn't do a lot for me. That kind of brooding, I'm learning to be human kind of thing. It's not my kind of trope.
I love him, but that is because I played Shadow the Hedgehog when I was 15 and very angsty, so he hits different for me, but...
I understand why people love him. I totally get it. But my god, what a good campaign.
Here's the thing. A, mechanically, great campaign. Mm-hmm. B, I think does a lot to make the character more interesting for people who don't connect with angsty brooding that has lingered on a character for a decade.
Yeah. Because he hasn't really changed. He's still the same hedgehog that people are going to love. And that I sort of... When I say I'm not into Shadow, I do love him in a cringy way. He makes me cringe so hard. But I'm not saying that with contempt. I am saying that in a sort of adoration. And all of that's still there, but you are right in that it does give him more.
I don't think it's unfair to say that, if you look at this as a package, the Sonic half is Sonic and Chibi Sonic run around having a little fun adventure. And Shadow's half might be a little bit go to the therapy dimension and maybe sort out a little bit of your angst.
Yeah, and I would play an entire full-length campaign of Shadow just working on himself. Just doing the work to be better. It is the gameplay that really, grabbed me on that.
Yeah, it's some of the best 3D Sonic gameplay that I have played.
Oh, absolutely.
Some of the things it gets right early on that I've been trying to work out why I'm enjoying these 3D Sonic levels so much. They do a really good job of keeping up momentum and not having too many things that are designed to punish you for wanting to go fast. It has a good amount of perspective shifting to keep the flow feelings as fun. A nice number of tools with which to be playing through those levels, but also a surprising amount of verticality and multiple paths of different verticalities that the 2D games have always done, but the 3D games have never really found a way to make that click.
Yeah, they're very layered, the levels. They're very layered. And yeah, you're 100% right. I'm drafting a review at the moment, which... hopefully will be up before this podcast is. I feel like I want to try and get it out today, Wednesday at the time of talking, before, there's no point posting it on Thursday, on Dragon Age Day. But yeah, I've been saying similar stuff. This is, I literally wrote, similar to what you said, this is some of the tightest level design a Sonic game's ever had, certainly of the 3Ds. I was talking about it on stream last night as well. There's very little wasted space. Some of the 3D Sonics can have levels that are kind of sprawly and little areas that go nowhere and just feel like they're there to confuse you. Whereas here, everything makes sense. All the different gameplay sections flow into each other in a way that feels intuitive. The camera, despite constantly changing distances and perspective, makes sure to always keep Shadow clearly on screen and the destination ahead of him clearly in focus. So at no point am I where the fuck am I supposed to be going?
Yeah.
It does a great job of laying out the track and all the combustible elements that can sometimes create a car crash. Here, they're working together. They're not fighting each other for once.
Early on, there's a batch of levels you do to get some keys to unlock a boss door, and those are get to the end within a time limit, but also do a thing along the way, get X number of rings or defeat this number of enemies. Some of those really exemplified, having a Sonic level that's here is a focus, and there's multiple ways you can go about it, and deliberately that are designed so there is more than the amount you need of the thing you're supposed to be getting, so you don't have to stop and make sure, I missed one. You can go, no, that's probably okay, keep going. Some of those levels really clicked with me well in terms of being oh yeah, it's okay to have a Sonic game where you have a little degree of it's okay that I missed that one thing because I'm having fun going fast, but I do still need to try. Like, it's good.
I actually kind of realised after a few of those challenge levels that I was hamstringing myself by trying to get them all. Because once you hit the minimum, you're not getting points for getting extra.
Yeah, no. You just got to get there fast at that point.
Yeah, it's get the minimum, get the exit. That's it.
Yeah.
Whereas the first few times, I was getting lower level rankings than I should have. Like, I could have gotten an S rank on a level if I hadn't have tried to get more than I needed, if I'd have just blazed through it.
There's an early one where you're trying to beat 30 enemies, and I realised that, like, on a repeat of that level, I was like, oh, toward the end, I need to defeat these ones because I'll get this wall to come down so I can bounce across the big gap. So, like, these should be my final ones. So I can skip X number before I get here from what I've been doing, if there are some that are slowing me down. Like, having those moments of, these are the necessary ones, I only need to have done X amount before I get here, where can I save time? It almost had a coming back and trying to perfect a speedrunning route feel that it feels like Sonic as a series should lean into and doesn't always do.
Well, I think that sometimes I can play certain levels in 3D Sonic games. There are a good couple in Generations, and there is one in Shadow itself. Like, the last 2 acts are fucking terrible. I'll just straight up say it. It's all of the worst elements of a Sonic level, in all the ways that Sonic levels can be bad. Unfortunately, there are 2 stages in the Shadow campaign that exemplify it. Other than that, beautifully tightly done. Sometimes I get the feeling with some Sonic games that they haven't thought this through. They've cobbled these levels together, and they've not thought about the kind of slippery physics that Sonic has and how that might run up against what they're trying to do with this level layout and stuff like that. I don't get that impression with 90% of the levels in Shadow. They have thought about it. They have thought about how Shadow moves and how he feels when he's moving. They have thought about how platforming differs from a grind rail and how that differs from tracks with loopy-loopies and stuff like that. There's just a lot more consideration, and I think that's led to a level design that in some ways feels like closer to Mario in that philosophy of you could get from beginning to end without ever stopping if you nail your jumps precisely. And Sonic should feel more like that, but it often doesn't. But a lot of Shadow does. That said, I have some complaints.
I have some, but I'll let you go first, because mine are sillier and nitpickier, I imagine.
Okay. I don't like the hub world. All of the space that was used judiciously in the levels, it's all gone to shit in the hub world. That's where all the wasted space has gone. There is so much pointless wandering around this void of a map, with nothing to really explore other than some of the worst in-game rewards you can ever get in games.
Oh, some of the fiddliest things to reach as well.
Yeah.
They're in really awkward positions that, like, this is where stop and do fiddly platforming don't go fast, like, creeps its way back in.
To unlock a bit of concept art. Like, why would I want to spend, like, ages working out this huge environmental puzzle to look at a sketch of a random enemy that I could just look on the internet and see?
Yeah, the sooner I got over trying to get those, the happier I was with it.
Yeah, basically, if I stumbled onto one, I'd unlock it, but I was not going out of my way. And that's all there is for reward. You can get some lore entries, which might be worth it depending on how into the lore you are. Music tracks, which, yeah, I suppose. And then, shit like that, like fucking concept art. Like, I'm not worth going out your way for. Like, why can't you get a shiny new pair of shoes? Like, give me some fun unlocks if you're gonna try and justify a hub world. I don't like how the challenge levels, how all of them are mandatory. I'm not a big fan of making challenge levels in any sense mandatory in games. At least with the main Sonic Generations campaign, you only had to do some of them to keep progressing.
Yes, the idea of if one of them is too challenging, do a different one. You've done enough challenges, you can move on. Don't stress about doing everything.
Yeah. And unlike Sonic Generations, to Shadow's credit, the challenge levels, none of them feel like bullshit. A lot of them are actually fun and are things I'm perfectly happy to choose to play. But what I don't appreciate is finishing a level, making my way through this hub world, and bouncing and jumping and platforming my way to get to the boss door, which then unlocks the challenge levels, which I then have to manually get to, finish, and go back.
I would be totally fine if there was no hub world and I got, menu, select my level, occasionally see a cutscene.
Yes. Like, I know once you finished a level, you can, enter it again from a menu, but I would much rather just have it all on a menu, or at the very least have a better laid out hub. Like, if you're going to make me do fucking challenge levels to get keys to open the boss door, put those levels next to the boss door. Here's the thing. Maybe don't make me go all the way to the boss door at the end of a long platforming section to unlock the levels, to then go back and do them and return. Why? Did you really need to pad it out that much? I know it's a short campaign, but Jesus fucking Christ, it's attached to another game. You didn't have to pad. So, I don't appreciate that, and I don't like how it took this... it put a sour taste in my mouth with the challenges in general, because I felt less inclined to want to play them because they felt mandatory, when I was happily playing a lot of them. Most of them are good. It really fucks with the flow of the game overall, where I'm playing these really cool, lengthier levels. Then I've got this really stoppy-starty thing in between them of cutscenes and back and forthing and challenges and back and forthing again. It gives it a real stuttered sense.
Agreed.
Yeah. The only other big complaint is the bosses, all of which are embarrassing.
Yeah.
What is that first boss, Laura? What is that bio
lizard? That one that, the thing's chasing me, I'll run away. Seemingly no matter what I do, it catches me and eats me, and it's very unclear what's going on.
They're so poorly communicated.
Yeah.
Most of them are easy. Because they're so... To call them mechanically rudimentary is to undersell how little there is to them.
That first one, I just couldn't work out how to have it stop hitting me. So every time it did, I picked up at least one coin, and then it stopped and did the phase where I jump and homing attack it, and then I won.
Yeah. That one especially is really bad, because either it is doing things where you don't quite know what the fuck it's up to, and when it's not doing that, it's more or less just holding up a sign saying, please beat me. The one after that is probably the worst one. The one you fight while you're on his venom stingray.
Yes.
That one is a fucking clunky mess. And then the one after that is, again, rudimentary, doesn't do it justice. It's
a shame that, they've got cool designs and ideas that could have been cool that just fall flat on their face in execution.
Yeah. Absolutely terrible bosses.
Yeah.
And Sonic Generations as well, didn't have very good bosses. I refought Chaos on stream last night, and I was operating on 1 hour of sleep, and I'd forgotten how to play the games. I had a really distressing stream last night. It was terrible, because I'd completely forgotten how to play Sonic, and my brain was processing it too slowly. I had no problem with Chaos, though, because it is so functionally sparse. Very disappointing. But other than that, yeah, really fucking good.
I have one very short complaint, and it's a completely meaningless, unimportant thing. It is very important to the backstory of Shadow the Hedgehog that the thing that motivates him is a young girl being shot in the head by the military. Just point-blank gun to the head, shot by the military. This has been retconned in Sonic and Shadow Generations to be a military member putting his open-palmed hand out in her general direction and a flash to white. Don't be cowards. Let that girl get shot in the head by the military. That's what he's angsty about. Don't shy away from it.
Yeah, I will. On that subject, just one more thing. And it's going to sound like I'm being sarcastic. I wish there were guns.
I wish there were guns too.
If this is...
Energy blasts that shoot projectiles are not the same as a gun.
Shadow's little gimmicks are all cool. I like his weird little symbiote shit in the energy blasts. I don't like them, but they're fine. But this is Sonic X Shadow Generations. The concept of the game is like a celebration of past and present Sonic stuff.
I have a theory They didn't want the age rating to change from the age rating that the original Sonic generations got.
Now, that's probably it. You are probably right.
They wanted to hit the same market demographic and didn't want guns to raise the age rating.
And I think it's a real shame. I think it is a real shame because, yes, Shadow the Hedgehog, the old GameCube, PS2 era game, is bad. It's not good. But they put Sonic 06 levels in Sonic Generations, and that worked out okay.
Yeah.
And I think in a game that has the philosophy that Generations has, it feels like a glaring omission to not have a nod to Shadow the Hedgehog's standalone game that he had. Like, it's a shame that he doesn't have at least a little section where he's got big fuck-off assault rifles in his hands and shit. And yeah, you are absolutely right. It's probably an age rating thing. They could have done something around that. They could have given him space blasters and done the same thing, you know?
Just have him do finger guns.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're trying to do with his magic energy blast. I think that was it.
It's not the same. A little zappy Hadouken ain't the same. I would have liked some levels that properly felt like Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah. Before we wrap up for today, we've got a couple of newsy bits we can very quickly touch on. I don't think we need to go into any huge depth on these, but we'd be amiss if we didn't acknowledge them. We'll get this one out the way quickly. You know how Concord got taken off sale, and the developer Firewalk Studios were like, we're gonna retool it, we're gonna work out what we're gonna do with it. Yeah, Concord's not coming back, and Firewalk Studios is gone.
Someone pointed out, I forget who, sorry, but someone on social media did point out last night, like, the executives who greenlit that game and pushed for the game to have had, you know, the various servicey elements, all the bits that failed. One of them got to retire quietly. One of them was promoted to the position of the executive who closed the studio down. That's your fucking industry. That's the game industry. That right there. It fucking sucks. I hated that game, but I guarantee you the things I hated most about it were nothing to do with the people who made it.
For all the problems I had with that game had some really cool accessibility stuff going on for its genre, and it's a real fucking shame to see it gone.
You get one shot in this industry now. You get given one shot, and if you fail because of things that the executives imposed on you, those same executives will punish you for what they did.
Indeed.
Just disgusting.
And speaking of bullshit that this industry does, NFT games haven't quite died out yet from the big AAA publishers. Ubisoft's announced a blockchain game. It's called Champions Tactics Grimoria Chronicles. Because of course it is.
Could you say that name again, please, just so I can be extra, just so I can really maximise my level of disgust?
Champions Tactics Grimoria Chronicles.
Jesus fucking Christ.
The headline that caught my attention was that there are NFTs in this game costing up to £50,000.
Okay.
There's a $64,000 US NFT that you can buy in game. It's hard to tell what the fucking game is, because with all these fucking NFT games, they don't actually fucking explain the gameplay. The developer, Francois Baudson, over at Ubisoft Paris, said it offers strategic, deep gameplay featuring unique in-game assets and several exciting innovations.
Shut your mouth, you tiny little monster!
Digging through his bullshit, it's kind of like a TCG, like a trading card game, but with little figurines that act the way that your trading cards would, and those are NFTs, and you can unlock them in-game in theory, but really they want you to buy an NFT to have a competitive advantage over your opponents.
Jail is too good for the people making this.
It got an adults-only rating because it's got blockchain and crypto shit in it that the ratings board doesn't want to, actually rate.
I mean, I'm glad we've at least got that as an industry standard. Absolutely, kids should not be allowed near this shit. There's a lot of content I would sooner a kid have access to than anything on the blockchain. Not least because that's where a lot of let's say, paedophiles calling their interests libertarianism like to hang out.
Yeah, so, keep shouting about not wanting this to be the future of the industry because Ubisoft is still trying to make it the future of the industry. They're really fucking trying for it. And when the main thing I know about your game is I can buy a digital little figurine that was procedurally generated for $64,000 fucking dollars, that's not a game.
No. And I doubt anyone from Ubisoft listens to this show, but on the off chance any executive does, any decision maker, I want you to know that when I say I'm disgusted, I'm not just saying that offhandedly. I have genuine contempt for you as a human being. I dismiss your humanity. I need you to understand that. I think you are a monstrous little creature, and I would not piss on you if you were on fire. I really wouldn't. Especially if you're doing shit like this, which will cause a lot of the actual planet to be on fire with the energy consumption. Quite genuinely, were you to not wake up in the morning, the world would be better off for it. And I'm not being hyperbolic. I mean, literally, the world would benefit.
Well, I think it's a good place to end.
I'm not wrong.
No, you're not wrong. And when you started saying it, and you're saying, I don't think anyone from Ubisoft listens. I was like, well, there's always a possibility that somebody, who works there would play it for them. And then you continued on. I was like, no, there's no way anyone from Ubisoft is ever going to hear this.
Yeah. So yeah, there we go. We done one.
We done one.
We did.
We done one.
We done one. So, people, stuff, things, Laura, work, you do. How they know?
How they know?
How they know you work do?
Laura K. Buzz, all the places. The big ones. Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills. As little as $1 a month over there. Lets me keep doing all the shit I do. YouTube, got a bunch of video stuff over there. Blue Sky, it's the social media where I don't have to deal with all the shitty people. It's kind of nice over there right now. The main ones. I'm gonna be playing a bunch of Dragon Age on Twitch when it comes out because fuck it, I want to see the shit that I worked on in a video game, and I'm gonna be excited about that for a while. You can come hang out with me while I be excited that I did some shit. That's Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 PM UK, 5 PM Eastern, 2 PM Pacific, or thereabouts. What about you, Conrad? Where are you at on the internet?
Oh, you can find me at Conrad Zimmerman on Instagram and Blue Sky. And you can hang out with me on Twitch at twitch.tv/thatconradzimmerman. I'm on Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays. You can buy anti-capitalist propaganda and Jimquisition merchandise at mercenarycreative.com. And everything I do online gets supported through Patreon at patreon.com/fistshark. And you know who else has a Patreon? Stephanie Sterling.
Indeed, patreon.com/Jim Sterling, which supports this podcast, The Jimquisition Show, and the writings and businesses on thejimquisition.com. Do check out Vampire Survivors Ode to Castlevania if you are a Vampire Survivors player, and let me know if you dig the bestiary entries. I think they're some of my best ones.
I dig the bestiary entries.
Oh, thanks, mate! Yay! I am glad. I got a kick out of seeing you enjoy them when we went to play it on Thursday. But yeah, that is out at the time of this talking. My next wrestling date, I can't remember them. I know I've got stuff coming up in December, but I'll just leave it at that. Thank you all. Oh, and I do stream at twitch.tv/Jim Sterling. On an irregular schedule, but I try and do it a couple of nights a week. That should be that. Thank you all so much. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.